And we are live on day five, the second experience of day five, the lunch and learn experience for this family business life 9-day transformation challenge. And let me tell you, this has been a challenge. I want you to know that to do something for consecutive days that is not a normal aspect of your life, your business, and things of that nature is a challenge. But anything that challenges you is really designed to position you for transformation. And it certainly has provided some transformational value to me, my family, my business. Like everything has been in the context of alignment and flow, and there's been challenging from an intentional standpoint of questioning things, evaluating things, assessing things. And so this has been magnificent. I want to start by acknowledging our partner and sponsor in this 9-day transformation challenge, Awareness Elevation. Absolute magnificent coaching, training, consulting company that really specializes in awareness, self-awareness, and high performance constructs. I mean, they are magnificent. They are powerful. They are some wonderful people, and they have been excellent in partnering in this effort to execute this 9-day transformation challenge. The two people primarily who are behind it are James Powell and Lynn Ann Weaver. They were on day one, day two mastermind experiences, as well as Lynn Ann was on the, I think it was day three VIP um, Q&A experience. And so that was an awesome opportunity to engage with her in that regard. But also, we're going to be having another one of the people behind the scenes for Awareness Elevation, and that is Larry, who is their vice president of operations. And we're going to be having a conversation on the day 7 VIP Q&A experience, which is a unique experience in the context of this 9-day transformation challenge. We will have one of those today after this segment. So I'll be jumping off probably about 15 to 1:30 and getting ready for that and encouraging you to get on over there. And if you're watching on demand, just know that once you finish this, go ahead and go to the next one, which is that second VIP Q&A experience. And so lunch and learn, day one, this lunch and learn experience was called gourmet food. And then another one of those days, somebody said this was like filet mignon. And this has been an awesome privilege for me to engage in this moment of releasing some of the perspective and value related to family life and business life, consistent with the thought process of mastery between the two. And so, what we have focused on for this lunch and learn, and really for all of them, is what I call the trilogy of transformation, which are the three areas that influence one, family life crashing and burning while business life is thriving and vibing, and then two, the achievement of mastery in family life and business life so that you can experience a progressive and high performing experience of family business life mastery. Well, we are kind of like at the hump day. No, this is not Wednesday. This is the fifth day of the 9 days. And really, it's that turning point. And I like that this turning point is in the middle of the trilogy, in the sense that we're talking about the second of the three accurate beliefs. And it literally is like a pivot point for the previous things discussed and the things that will be discussed on the opposite side. I'm talking about we are getting ready to have some magnificent momentum. And I don't want you to look at it as we're getting ready to drop when I say pivot point. I want you to look at it from the high perspective, not the peak performance, but the high performance perspective, where we're getting ready to shift and take this leap and this exceptional movement in our trajectory toward family business life mastery. I'm telling you, this is about to be exciting. So let me just give you a quick recap. And that is, the first 3 days we focused on the three misleading beliefs that cause family life crashing and burning, and position us to be in a perceptive situation of business life thriving and vibing, but really just being in an illusionary situation where at some point the business life is likely to experience crashing and burning as well. But we dealt with what those three are. First and foremost, the first belief that is misleading is believing that we can achieve and pursue work-life balance. It's full of insanity. Go back and look at day one, lunch and learn, to get the fullness of that. The second one is believing that one is more important than the other, meaning believing that family life and business life, out of the two, one is more important. And the tendency is to choose business life over family life because it's just a lot easier. But there are some aspects to that. So certainly go over and check out day two, lunch and learn experience for that. And then day three was the focus on the one that is at the core of those misleading beliefs, in the sense that because of this misleading belief, the other two misbeliefs actually have a reason to exist. And that is believing that family life and business life don't relate to each other. And more so, it's in the context of, not really knowing that they relate and not knowing how they relate. And the easiest way to understand how these two, family life and business life, relate to each other is this: family life and business life are meant to be teammates, not opponents. And that's the pivotal perspective that we have been using in the promotion of this 9-day transformation challenge, as well as all the perspective that has been provided. So then on day 4, so make sure you go back and check out day 3, lunch and learn experience. Day 4, yesterday, we focused on the first accurate belief, which is the one that trumps the first misleading belief. See, we believe that we can achieve work-life balance, but it's really not possible, not achievable at all. So what is it that's achievable? What's achievable is alignment, and you get alignment through achieving flow. Actually, it's the opposite, Leo. You achieve flow, and you achieve flow by creating alignment. And so we showed how family life and business life are on two different sides, but on the same structure of continuity, to where they flow into and out of one another. So go back to day 4 and check that out as well. Get some substance from that. Now, today we are on day 5, focused on the second of these accurate beliefs. And why is it important to have these accurate beliefs? It's because you need intentionality, you need focus. You cannot achieve high performance without an appropriate amount of intention. And here's what happens. In the context of high performance, you have the battle between which one is the priority: the mechanisms that enable you to achieve, or the intention that positions you to achieve. And James talked with us in the mastermind session on day 1 the importance of not focusing on and prioritizing the mechanisms, because in the mechanisms is the very context and construct of ego. And ego is what causes us to ask those belligerent questions of things like, should I choose one over the other? Is one more important than the other? And then have the mindset of actually achieving balance. Well, when you actually let go of ego and get in the context of intention, what happens is you position yourself to benefit from the wisdom of that which is most predictably beneficial and valuable, which leads us to accurate beliefs and out of misleading beliefs. Oh my goodness. So we're dealing with accurate belief number 2. Let's see what our focus is. Before we get into accurate belief number 2, I want us to think about our topic today: informed by fire. Now, I love this context of fire, first and foremost, because fire is the thing that connects with crashing and burning. And I'll show you an illustration later on as we get into the latter part of our session and kind of get some focus and a picture in our mind of this crash and burn perspective related to fire. But I want us to think about fire. Fire is a unique aspect, right? And I want us to understand that family life and business life are like fire in the sense of when you know how to handle it appropriately, it can be extremely valuable. But when you don't deal with it appropriate to its nature and context, it can be exceptionally catastrophic. And when you go back and think about the misleading beliefs, and if you have not followed the transformation challenge as far as the live experience, or you've just now kind of started going through the on demand, go back and get into the lunch and learn related to those misleading beliefs and get some perspective so you can understand why this is such a real and powerful perspective related to fire being an informant of the understandings related to family life and business life. But again, when you know how to handle fire appropriately, what happens is you are able to deal with it in a way that it becomes so valuable. But when you don't know, one, how to use it appropriately, or when you don't use it appropriately, what happens is you find yourself in the position to where catastrophe is ultimately likely. I want to tell you a quick story. So, when I was younger, probably maybe about 12, 11, somewhere in there, I was at my grandparents' home. This is my mother's parents. So, it was just, I think, myself and my grandfather home, and it may have been somebody else, like maybe some of my other cousins, but they were not necessarily there. I think it was just myself and my grandfather. My grandfather was in his room, maybe taking a nap or something. And so I call myself wanting to kill some ants. And one of the ways we used to kill ants was we would actually pour gasoline over the ant bed. And sometimes you just leave the gasoline on the ant bed and just let it do its thing. And, they would pretty much disperse. And at some point, it would just, kind of dissolve. Rain would come and, wash it away, all that good stuff. But then another way we would do it is sometimes we would take the gasoline and actually, after we poured it on the ant bed, we would also, light the ant bed. Well, generally, that would only be done when the grass was really, really green. I wasn't paying attention to that. So one day I called myself, we had this really huge ant bed in the backyard of Granny and Papa's house. I mean, huge. When I tell you it was huge, it was probably about, maybe 2 feet wide and at least about, 6 to 8 inches high. I'm talking about this thing was massive. At least that's how I thought about it. And I wanted to destroy the ant bed. Mm, mm, mm. So I go get the gasoline, do my thing. I had done that before, pouring the gasoline on it and just leaving it. But this time I was like, no, I want to torch it because I wanted to see that thing burn. Man, I did not pay attention to the fact that the grass was kind of dry. And so as a result of that, I went ahead and lit the ant bed. And then next thing you know, the fire starts spreading. And I panicked. And instead of me going and get the water hose, I ran inside to Pawpaw, wake him up. Pawpaw, the backyard is burning, And Pawpaw said, "Why is the backyard burning?" It's like, I was trying to kill the ant bed. And he's like, "Okay, go put the fire out." And I said, "Okay." So I look out the window while I'm talking to him. And you just see it just started to spread. And thankfully, it wasn't spreading fast, but it was spreading, right? So I go out. And obviously, when he said, "Well, put it out," he didn't tell me what to do, but obviously I knew what to do. So that tells you I just panicked. So I go outside and I get the water hose and I go and just put it out. Now, here it is. The problem was not that I was trying to kill the ant bed. It was that I was not dealing with the fire within the context of its environment and the circumstances related to that particular situation of torching the ant bed. Now, here's two things you should know. I probably should not have torched it. I probably just put the gasoline on and just keep moving. All right. That would have been honorable in and of itself. But there was something else I could have done other than going and, doing what I did after I told him that it was happening. I could have actually taken the water hose first and foremost and observed that it was a little dry, and then, wetted the area around. Listen to me carefully. Wetted the area around that ant bed and then lit it, so that I was creating a barrier so that the fire would go beneath and not go out. Okay. That it would be contained. Ultimately, what I want you to see is when it comes to fire, it is about how it is used and being informed about its appropriate function that determines whether or not it's catastrophic or beneficial. All right. With that being said, I ask this question to people. When it comes to a home, if you have fire inside of the house, is that a bad thing? And some people will say absolutely yes. Then some will say it depends. And so those people who say it depends, I ask them, why does it depend? They say, well, it depends on if the fire is just, anywhere and just, whatever the case may be, just dealing with it willy-nilly. That's a problem. But if the fire is in some areas where, like it's being used for the fireplace, is being used for the furnace, is being used for a candle or something like that, the stove, like there's nothing wrong with that. I said, absolutely. Which means here's what we've got to understand. When it comes to fire, knowing how to use it is where all of the benefit is. Knowing how to handle it, knowing the context of its power, of its detriment, all those different things is so important. And guess what? That thought process is the informant for family life and business life, which is why, informed by fire, we are able to have a very powerful understanding of accurate belief number two. Not only a very powerful understanding of accurate belief number two, but a very powerful understanding of family life and business life within the context of them being teammates and not opponents. You don't have to choose your family life over your business life, or you don't have to choose your business life over your family life. And matter of fact, I would even go as far as to say you are not designed to choose your family life over your business life. You're designed to do something with them. First and foremost, accurate belief number one says achieve flow between them. Put them in a position to where they are aligned. And accurate belief number two, make sure I say accurate belief number one is achieve flow. Accurate belief number two is to make fuel. In regard to make fuel, I want you to think about those examples I mentioned as it pertains to in the house. I like to tell this story when I was on the Present Professional podcast. I was talking with Tony Holmes, who's one of the hosts, and I said, Tony, your little son come in and he got a little torch, and he just taking that torch and literally just torching the floor with it, just going willy-nilly, hitting it everywhere he wants to, just ha 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 ha. I said, man, what you gonna deal with? Very likely some crashing and burning. Why? Because young man there has some misleading beliefs about fire. He's not appropriately informed about the fire. Yeah, even you got a candle and that candle falls over and it hits the ground. Maybe it's not intentional. Or you got a piece of paper that gets, torched, or you trying to light the fireplace and you don't light it well and something spark comes out and hits the carpet or the floor, or something of a Christmas tree, whatever the case may be. You can have a detrimental situation. As a matter of fact, there's an aunt of mine who's deceased now, lived in the home that her parents lived in. They ended up having that home burned down because The Christmas tree caught on fire and it literally crashed and burned. Okay. That's the reality of when fire is not handled or it's not in the context of its controlled manner. But then you got the other side where, fire is able to be fuel for food. Oh, you heard that word, fuel. Yes. To be honest, when something is crashing and burning and it's being destroyed by fire, the fire is fuel. It's fuel for the destruction, is fuel for the takedown. There is a healthy sense of forest fires. It helps to rejuvenate the area of the forest and help new growth and things of that sort. But if it gets out of control, it is fuel, but it's destructive fuel. So what we need to see is that fuel can be very progressive or it can be problematic, right? And so that's really the two thoughts that we want to have about fuel. But as it pertains to family life and business life, what you want to be able to understand is that family life and business life should have between them the making of fuel. In other words, you make fuel between them, but then you also make them fuel one another, right? It's so important. See, when you are trying to balance family life and business life, which is not achievable, you can't make fuel because the construct of the measure does not allow for fuel. Now, if you try to fuel family life and you make fuel in family life, make fuel in business life on the balance, what happens is because you cannot put equal amounts of energy, time, and effort and resources into them at the same time, what happens is the fuel becomes a weighted source that continues to create this ebb and flow all the time that never actually comes to equilibrium because it's always doing this because there's no equality in the flow of the fuel from where it goes, because it's designed to be measured on the basis of scale. But when you measure and situate family life from the standpoint of alignment that is in the construct of continuity to enable them to achieve flow, making fuel becomes easy because they flow in and out of one another. And the fuel that's generated from the energy, the investment of time, the investment of effort, the investment of funds, the investment of interactions and opportunities, it creates this momentum of magnificence that begins to flow out of whatever one it is, be it family life into business life, or be it business life into family life. Fuel is so powerful. Fuel is energy. Fuel is the very substance of making things empowered. And so when it comes to making fuel, we want to understand that we make fuel in them, but then the fuel that is made in them becomes fuel that can flow out of them so that they can actually make fuel the other, which is why it's a teammate thought process. Let's talk about that for a moment. Family life and business life are meant to be teammates, not opponents. Let me ask you a question. Does an opponent fuel his opponent? To some degree, yes. In the sense that the opponent, if they are good opponents, they observe what their opponents are doing in the exchange of the opposition, and they make adjustments so that they can continue to make assaults and offend their opponent in such a way that they can try to advance over them. But the problem is that fueling is not in the context of being advantageous to help the opponent. So this is not good to have family life and business life on the construct of a weighted situation or a measurement that deals with scale where there's balance involved, because there is the perception of opposition. See, you've got to put fuel, energy, effort, time, resources, all those things into family life, into business life. You've got to do it. And in some cases, you put more into to business life because business life doesn't have the element of personality and intelligence. It needs personality, intelligence, and all of that comes from the very reality of family life, because all of us in the family are personality and intelligent. all the love, all the perspective. It's in family life. And the people who are in family life are the people who find themselves in business life. The people who are in family life are the ones who actually give life to business life. They're the ones who actually bring the skills, the abilities, the ideas, the constructs, and the perspectives. I mean, when we lived in an agricultural age, we saw that more vividly. But here's the thing, while we're in a technological age, the very constructs and realities of the agricultural construct still exist in us as it pertains to our very existence. And we still are able to deal with that reality from a more intellectual and intentional perspective, which is why it's important that we focus on intention and not mechanisms, let go of the ego so we can operate in the humility of value for family life and how it fuels business life and vice versa. You see, it's so important that we understand that the oppositional reality of family life that we are so accustomed to and find ourselves in experiencing crashing and burning while there's a perception of thriving and vibing from business and family life is just suffering. It's because in some instances we're ignorant, but more aspects, it is the fact that there has been misinformation delivered to us, which puts us in a position to where why many people pursue the insanity of work-life balance. Teammates is the thought process, right? What team in our professional environment is going to be successful without the teammates focusing on fueling one another? Focusing on the fuel that they're making within themselves from their thoughts and ideas and creativity and their time being put in and their thoughts and perspectives being shared and conveyed. How many of them are going to be able to offer value to the team as an individual, right? And I loved that I've been talking about this perspective related to me being a cross country runner and then even being in track, because those specific sports really deal with the context of team with a very clear focus on individuals on the team. In order for you to be an excellent teammate as a cross country runner, as a track runner, or participant in field events, you have to have absolute focus and commitment to the development of your specific event, your craft, and what you do. But you have to have that not just because you're competing to win and you're competing against your opponents. You do. You have to also have it understanding that what you're doing to win over your opponent is also contributing to the overall benefit of the team score to be the championship team over all other teams. So we've got to see that there is a true essence of teammate collaboration to where family life and business life, and this is transitioning completely into accurate belief number 3, but I'm not going to touch on it today. Accurate belief number 3 absolutely gets so much validation from this informed by fire accurate belief number 2, which is make fuel, because there is the aspect of family life has its individual function and focus, its individual fueling responsibility. But so does business life. It has its own function and focus and fueling responsibility. And when the fueling responsibilities, when the focus and when the function independently is dealt with, and then it exerts and releases the substance that has been produced in it, when it's released, it releases to the opposite one, but not in an oppositional way where there's choosing one over the other. It's in an teammate oriented way where there is fueling from one to the other, flowing from one to the other. Y'all, this is exciting to me because there is a clear picture that is painted in, I guess you could say, emerging and prevailing with regard to the understanding that family life crashing and burning is not a necessity. I want to focus on this picture here as we get ready to shift into the very conclusion of this time, I want to put it up to where you can look at it. I want us to look at this picture of this house that's crashing and burning. I mean, I chose this picture specifically because it's burning, yes. But I want you to see how it's literally crashing. You see stuff just falling down. This is family life. Family life that's crashing and burning. But what you've got to understand is this is affecting those who are a part of family life. And if it's affecting them, it's affecting those who are then going to be a part of business life. See, this is why it's said that if business life is thriving and vibing, if you're not intentional about dealing with the crash and burn, it's a matter of time before this right here looks the same way for the business. I should have got a picture of a business that was burning too, so you can kind of see that. But you get the picture. How did this house start burning? It could have been unintentional. But let me tell you what I know. I have I have been in the electrical industry. I've been in the air conditioning and heating industry. And both of those industries as trades, you're dealing with structure, but you're dealing with the things behind the structure. You're dealing with the things behind the walls, the things in the ground, the things that are in the attic, the things that are not necessarily visible. And one of the things that I know is that those people who do not engage in regular maintenance, regular awareness, and consistent checks of what's going on with their systems, going on with their um, energy sources and things of that sort, evaluating how they're functioning, looking at their light bills to determine, if there's something that could be going on with, my electrical, my plumbing, my air conditioning and heating, or whatever the case may be, not looking at those things and evaluating them from an assessment oriented perspective positions things like that to happen. Now, we know that there can be absolute, just intentional, catastrophic thinking that could cause crashing and burning. But there's also neglect that can cause crashing and burning, which is how it happens majority of the time. This fire could have started because there was a spark or something. Somebody may have left a candle burning and it fell over, or there could have been a spark from the fireplace, or somebody was cooking on the stove and they got some grease and it was a grease fire. It could be a number of reasons. It could have been there was something in the wall that actually ended up catching fire. It could have been like what happened with my aunt, where the Christmas tree ended up catching on fire from the Christmas lights, and whatever the case may be. The point is, we need to know that family life, as well as even business life, can crash and burn. And because it can crash and burn, simply because there is fuel that is designed to be made, fuel that is being engaged and utilized in them and between them, we've got to be intentional about observing how that fuel source is being dealt with. Very important. Now, let me ask you this question. If your family life crashes and burns, can you start over? Is it possible to rebuild family life? To see it crash and burn and then say, you know what, let's clean up the wreckage and then redo this thing. Let me tell you, absolutely. If you did not hear our session today with our mastermind experience with Michelle Castillo on day 5, y'all, you go check it out. Michelle talked about how her own personal experience is the epitome of business life was thriving and family life was crashing. She even said, she asked the question. She was like, why is my business thriving and my family is crashing? She asked it. Like, this was her question that she asked herself before she had ever met Leo. She just happened to talk about it on the Mastermind Experience this morning. What a powerful perspective. And just so you know, you should go check it out, because we talked about even how her and her husband went through a divorce and now they are married again. Y'all, that is a powerful story. And matter of fact, family life is thriving and vibing, and so is business life. And they are experiencing what I love to say that is the byproduct of family business life mastery, is increased productivity and increased profitability. I mean, Michelle and her husband and her sons, man, they are thriving and continuously doing exactly what I was saying, doing those continual checks. She talked about all of these things. Y'all go check it out. Okay. What I want you to understand is, seeing family life crashing and burning is not something that's good and comfortable to look at. Sometimes how we deal with family life crashing and burning is that we seek to turn a blind eye to it. We seek to act like it's not really happening, because it's like that can't be happening to us. Let me tell you, from somebody who saw crashing and burning, from somebody who had their wife come to them and say, "I'm done, I'm tired, I want a divorce." And it wasn't happening the same way on business side. For somebody who has seen just the bottom fall out of family, it's so important to let go of the ego, like James said, and be willing to look at it for what it really is and say, what's happening here? I want to take this completely in, question it. In other words, challenge it. Why? Because when you challenge it, you posture yourself for transformation. You see why this is the pivot point of all of what we've been talking about? I mean, we're on the trajectory to where the momentum is heating up. It seemed like the other stuff was a slow start. It's like, yeah, I get it. Even as I was delivering, it was like, man, I know I got this a little better. I know I can really deliver this a little better. No, it was just because the content is challenging. It's challenging to begin to evaluate those misleading beliefs. It's challenging to actually question and consider that work-life balance doesn't work. Does it work? Does it make sense, right? Does balance make sense? It's challenging to ask, is one more important than the other, especially when I've been believing this. And, we like to think that the things we've been believing make a difference, and that's good for us. It's challenging. But see, what happens is when you challenge what you believe, you challenge yourself in the context of even family life and business life, these beliefs, you challenge yourself. What you find yourself doing is you posture yourself for a transformational experience to where you can say, okay, what's the accurate way to look at this? What's the predictably productive way to look at this? What's the way to look at this that is always going to be high performing? And fire here is informing us that we are able to really progress well when we evaluate the power of family life and business life. And are we harnessing it, leveraging it appropriately, using it in the most effective and valuable way? The other thing with regard to the crashing and burning is, if it's burning, it's okay. And it's okay to just be comfortable with it burning, but it's okay to acknowledge that it's burning and it's happening to you. Because you're not the first one, you're not the last. And how you respond to family life crashing and burning, listen, will determine not only what you get from it, but how you are able to be postured to provide exceptional value in other people whose family lives are crashing and burning. See, as the family business life mastery coach, like, I have a tenacious, aggressive appetite to go after people, knowing that there is a solution for this pervasive problem of family life crashing and burning while business life is thriving and vibing. So much and so that I did something that most people would not do. I hadn't really been on the trail continuously engaging in a lot of content on the public side. I've been more so doing this from a coaching and training in a private manner with one-on-one, not really groups and things of that sort. When I really got clear about this problem and the solution that I was able to provide for this problem, and the light that I'm able to be for those who are in the darkness of this problem, I just went aggressive with it, so much and so that I reached out to a podcast that has over 130 million listeners. You know what can happen if you get on a platform like that and people, you make an offer for them to connect with you, you can get inundated. Well, guess what? I didn't care about getting inundated. Why? Because I know the pervasive problem that this is and how frustrating it is when this thing is crashing and burning, and people need to know there's somebody out here who is willing to provide them comfort in this situation, but encouragement and building up and coming out of it. Like, they need to know there's somebody out here who's willing to tackle this big problem and help them expose the blind spots that are causing it and eliminate this problem so transformationally. That's why this thing is informed by fire. When you get clear about value, you cannot help yourself but to literally bring so much of it to others. So, as I'm closing, I want to put this up here. Here's what happened when you begin to achieve family, business, life mastery. You see that fire back there? But then let me ask you this question. Do you see that fire up front? What fire are you talking about, Leo? It's the one that shows that fire was connected with that coffee or that hot chocolate. I'm not sure which one it is. Regardless, there was some fire used to make that warm drink look good, feel good, taste good. That fire by the fireplace. Here's the thing, it's very likely that that space also has a furnace, a heater that is pumping heat through the home, but has this containment of combustion in either the attic or some type of cellar or the basement, where there's heat being distributed from a fire source contained in some type of mechanical structure. Even you see the nice little blanket there. That blanket had to be dried in a dryer. You know it was. They probably didn't put that on the clothesline like we used to do. I got to see a little bit of that when I was growing up at my grandparents' house, but that was only when their wash and dry didn't work, or more when their dryer didn't work. But yeah, there was a heater that actually, a heating source, a fire source that caused this clothing and attire that's being utilized to be warmed. See, what you've got to understand is the family life can look like this, such that it's refreshing and, watch this, making fuel and fueling the people who are in the family life for the business life. That's what it's designed to be. And what I want you to understand is that the fullness of family, business, life mastery is that when you have the true construct, connection, and commitment to these accurate beliefs, which we got one more tomorrow, you find yourself in a position to where you got comfort for a commitment of absolute excellence between two pivotal areas and relationships of your life. But there's another aspect to it, that business life becomes such a profound influence on people, processes, profit, and even environments, societies, economies, when family life really has the focus. I say this as I close. It was said to someone, it was said, I think, by Lynn Ann. She said, you know, I think that where we are in many instances, especially when family life is crashing and burning and business life is thriving and vibing, is that we need to make it very clear that it's necessary to prioritize family life. And a lot of times people think if they start prioritizing family life that they could cause business life to suffer, but they don't understand family life is like the agricultural reality, meaning you take a seed and you put it into the ground and then you give it time, and what's going to happen is going to produce something that is going to be rooted and grounded if it's in a fertile environment, which family life is a fertile environment. And at some point you take care of that tree and do all your things. At some point that tree is going to just be reproductive over and over again. And see, that's what it really means you should do when you prioritize family life. When your family life has been crashing and burning, it means that you need to sow an intentional seed of priority into family life, because when you do, it's going to spring up and grow in such a manner to where it provides great value to the business life in ways you couldn't imagine. All right. Leo's got to get here. Well, he's got to get off his soapbox so he can get over to the next studio so we can actually do the VIP Q&A experience. Y'all, join me over there. If you have been on the demand side, listen, you about to finish this, so just hop over into the next video. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. Listen, if you want to be a part of our community and get more inundated with these perspectives related to the transformation, the trilogy of transformation related to family life and business life mastery, go ahead and get into one of the links around this video, and it will give you some details about how you can join the community. But ultimately, I'm hopeful that you were challenged for transformation, and we'll see you on the next time. Take care.